Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. This is Yasa Uchiha here, and I want to have a little discussion with you all today. A discussion about tier limits and the tier 0 format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, let me be clear. I have never competitively played Yu-Gi-Oh! In tournaments, in YCS, LCS, or anything like that. Never. Never have I ever. So, this is just being a casual player's perspective and thoughts and opinions. So, let's get into this discussion, shall we? The reason that I want to talk about the tier limits in particular is because it's the core engine of most meta decks, if not just pretty much the core meta itself. It is the meta. It is tier 0. And I was watching a video the other day, or well, not really the other day, about a couple months ago. I believe it was Farfa. Yeah, it was Farfa who did the video on the whole basket for opinions on the whole tier 0 format. And for me, I want to put my voice into it finally. And finally, like, since I've finally gone back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've faced these decks online on, like, Dueling Nexus, EDO Pro, and Dueling Book, I can say with well darn confidence, I can understand why it's tier 0. It's a really fun deck. I've played it myself on multiple occasions. And honestly, yeah, don't get me wrong. Tier 0 should be technically a bad thing, but when half the community doesn't know if they like it or hate it, it's quite interesting, to say the least. And with that being said, we're going to get a little deeper into this, if you know what I mean. And my whole biggest thing about the tier 0 format, from what I've seen and what I've listened to, people are mixed. And it's really interesting to hear that from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, nonetheless. Because usually people are either like, oh no, I hate this sucks. Because tier 0 usually means, Pepe format, dad format, all that. But yet, tier limits don't feel necessarily like, oh dear, how do I put it? Necessarily bad. They feel good. Like, they feel right. Like, back in the day, people complained about Sky Strikers, am I right? Sky Strikers was this deck that everyone just hated. It was been played for X years until the 2019 Massacre ban list, right? It was like the best deck. I mean, it wasn't tier 0 by no means, but everyone hated it. And yet it got killed. And yet tier limits also have been not touched. And I also understand that the ban list is, well, I would assume, very close or very near to its approach. And with that being said, who knows what they're going to do with the tier limit cards and the Ishizu cards, especially the Ishizu cards. We'll get to those in a minute. But the tier limits are going to be the more interesting of the two. Because obviously the Ishizu cards are still a little bit new. And not, okay, well, I can't say really super new anymore. But either way, you get the point. Tier limits basically interact on either person's turn, depending what you mill and what you summoned. It's insane. The deck to me is very, I hate to say it, but fun. It's really fun. But it's also, what do you do with it so it doesn't get out of control? Because at any moment, if we don't take care of the problem now, it'll just get worse. And I feel that's what the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community is afraid of, is just that whole thought process. It's basically a good tier 0, but when will it become the Pepe, the dad format, all those negative tier 0 formats? Who knows? Maybe it won't get there. Maybe Konami will bite the tier limits in the butt. But honestly, I wouldn't be necessarily upset if they don't. maybe they hit the Ishizu cards, which, let's be honest, they're just as to blame for that deck is working as well as it does as the tier limits themselves. No matter how you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, you can't necessarily, look at it in a good light nor a bad light. I mean, yes, for those who are sick and tired of tier limits and the Ishizu cards, yes, you could look at it at a very negative light. I'm not trying to take that away from you. But for those who are just okay with it, but it's not necessarily hurting their experience with Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's great. Honestly, tier limits kind of brought me back. It's a really surprisingly cheap deck to make, considering for competitive. Usually a competitive deck's like over $1,300 usually. So say it's like $500 for a competitive, ready-to-play deck is shocking. That's shocking to me. Because I'm a guy who likes to build my casual decks and doesn't really want to spend a ton of money on everything, But yet, here I am. I'm playing tier limits and having a lot of fun, actually considering buying the deck out. Now, piece by piece, not $500 outright, but still, it's an interesting deck. It's an interesting archetype, and it's an interesting overall, just wonderful deck. Now, again, it's not just the tier limits. It is also the Ishizu cards. The minute those things were printed, oh dear heavens, the world basically said, why did these remakes of old cards just become so broken? Now, if tier limits are going to get hit, Ishizu cards for sure need to be hit. Now, this isn't a banlist prediction. I'm not even going to attempt that right now. Because honestly, I don't even know the full meta. If anything, this is the meta right here in front of us. So, if this does become like a sort of banlist prediction, I'm not even going to pretend like I know what limits they should be, because the OCG, for Pete's sakes, this deck is massacred in the OCG, but yet it's still tier 0. Because that's how fun this engine is and how well this engine runs. You could basically take it out back like Old Yeller, and yet Old Yeller will come out looking fine and dandy. It's insane. It's crazy, right? But yet, I don't see a problem with it. I only see potential. Yeah, maybe it's annoying that if you're playing like a different deck, you're not playing tier limits at a tournament, and you're trying to play Cyber Dragons, Marine Cess, Shadalls, Sky Striker, any other deck that involves just your turn, yeah, it's going to get pretty upsetting when you can't interact with anything or anyone, really, because your opponent basically just took your turn. Because all he got to do was mill and special summon, negate. Which, I get that. I guarantee you that's annoying to a lot of people. But for me, it's more of just how do you handle the situation. Because, yeah, I'm a competitive person. I have a short competitive temper. I will admit that a lot. And I probably will until the day I die. But I wouldn't mind losing to this deck. And I have, multiple times. It's a really nice deck. I can't even deny it. So whatever Konami decides to do with this deck, may it be an absolute slaughtering to the point where they actually don't make it playable, or they hit it just enough where it's still playable but not necessarily tier 0 anymore, or just outright say, ain't hurt, no harm, no foul. It's just, I guess we'll find out and see, am I right? But the whole point I want to get at is, do you guys enjoy this tier limits only deck format, basically? Are you guys finally done with it? I'm personally okay with it. I don't mind it. Not necessarily terrible, not necessarily bad. I just hope Konami won't let this go out of hand. And I hope, and I seriously hope, they don't make it any worse than what it already is. Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't think this tier 0 format's terrible. If anything, it's actually a really interesting tier limit, or sorry, tier 0 format. And I'm actually excited to see what will happen. So, with that all being said, I'm going to stop my rambling and just let you all sound off in the comment section. But before you hit those comments, hit the like button first. And even after that like button though, and before the comments, hit that subscribe button. Join the Rising Uchiha family and join the Discord down below, where you can entertain yourself with more fun and a lot of cast of characters down in that Discord that I guarantee you that you'll have fun with. With that being said, I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out.